Live. Well, hello. Oh no, wait.
Yeah.
This is the thing when something's live.
We are now live.
What was it? What was it like at BBC in the 1940s when they first started televising?
It was perfect.
Well, yeah, right.
Hello, everyone.
And welcome to Talk. In what episode of Talking Who is this?
40.
40.
It's not the 40th live one, but it's the 40th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
40 episodes of Talking Who. Welcome, now joined by Kat, who's actually taken the head seat.
Yeah, well, you were late. My name is Cameron K. McEwan. You might remember me from last time on the show.
Such classics of
Yes.
Talking Who 39 and Talking Who 38.
The Eve McIntosh interview.
And I'm Sean Harry, who you might remember me from those video guys.
Indeed. And I'm Elisar Cabrera. And from those video guys and Talking Who.
Yeah.
And welcome to the first of a new round of weekly Talking Who's, which is, of course, how we started the show and then sort of drifted off when there wasn't any...
Hold on, weekly?
It was weekly at one point.
I didn't sign up for weekly.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
There were certain weeks when it was just me on my own.
Oh,
yes.
That sounds great.
Welcome to the brand new studio.
Yeah, this is the new studio here in the heart of London.
Central London.
Yeah.
By Trafalgar Square.
Right by some bookcases.
Cool down, yeah. And these are film books.
Yeah.
Just so you know that we're in a proper film location.
TD Brewery says, nice shelves. Hope there's some Doctor Who books there.
Well, there's lots of books on filmmaking and script writing, which I'm going to take a few of them and we're going to get them off to Stephen Moffat as quickly as possible.
There's a book here on JNT.
Oh yes, I have my copy ordered already. I hear there's lots of what was it? The review in SFX said, don't read it unless you're into gossip. And then there's somebody has a subscription to the National Enquirer. That was kind of like a red flag to a bull to me. I was like, I've got to get a copy.
Well, we've moved into salacious territory already, but later on I'll be, or maybe even not that much later on, I'll be reviewing the new Doctor Who episode, The Bells of St. John, which airs this Saturday.
Yep.
Around the world, BBC America and BBC One.
In about 6 or 7 countries, isn't it?
Yes.
This weekend.
Yep, Poland and South Africa and Australia get it the day after.
More people can be watching Talking Who because it will be a spoiler.
But at the same time, TV shows they started doing this a few years ago on Sky One.
That's right.
Where they had to show the American shows literally the day after because otherwise people will download it, and I'm sure that's a big problem for Doctor Who.
But I think also from a point of view of publicity and marketing, it just means those stations just have to do more marketing. Whereas in the internet days, now we're on the internet, people go to central sites. They get their publicity from one source, and so it makes more sense that everybody around the world can.
But it's like that same weekend, new series of Game of Thrones, and within 24 hours, shows on HBO in the States. 24 hours later, it's on Sky One, Sky Atlantic over here, and it's a perfect example of how in this modern age, I think with digital media, it's also easier for TV companies to do this as well.
So I'll be reviewing that in a very spoiler-free way. I shall not be mentioning the return of Paul McGann or the Rani in the episode.
What is it? Every time if you pick up any of the papers, every time it's somebody who's supposed to be coming back, the Rani is in there somewhere.
Stephen Moffat recently said there's reasons why the Rani won't come back. And it's
because she was rubbish.
Two episodes, you'll know those reasons. I'm joking, of course. And so we'll be talking about Series 7 Part 2. Lots of new news about that.
So it was going on to the Rani, and just to go on a little tanjection. I was thinking because it's the.
Can I stop you? Oh, what does tanjection mean? I know what a tangent is.
Well, tangent, you know what I mean.
I know it's good. Tanjection.
Tanjection. That's a Gallifreyan version.
Interjection of a tangent.
Yes. But with this as the 50th anniversary, and I was thinking how, with the exception of last season, each season has brought back a classic monster.
That's right.
And this season we've actually had 2 classic monsters back. The Great Intelligence, the Ice Warriors are coming back. But almost for the 50th anniversary, it is interesting, they haven't made a thing of this. Almost every major monster has returned. First episode had the Daleks. We've then had the Weeping Angels back. We had a Sontaran, a Silurian, and the Great Intelligence in the Christmas special. We've got the Ice Warriors coming back, and we've got the Cybermen. coming back.
Do you think we could see a return for the Great Intelligence?
It's now been established. Well, it is. I heard his name is coming back at some point.
Richard E. Grant.
Oh, Richard E. Grant.
The same guy. Paul McGann, Richard E. Grant.
They're both in.
I went on a holiday by mistake. Richard E. Grant, which I thought was a bit odd. The BBC confirmed he was returning in an episode.
It's a very much of a spoiler, isn't it? To say that a character that you think is dead is actually coming back.
Unless he's playing the Schalke Doctor.
Well, sometimes they announce these things because they know it's going to get them a huge amount of publicity.
But that announcing that Richard E. Grant's coming back...
Well, for us it might seem, that's a spoiler. But for Joe Blogs on the street, sometimes they think a name like that is going to get people to take the show seriously and watch it.
Well...
And if they do bring the Great Intelligence back, will Gandalf be voicing him?
Well, I wonder.
Stephen Reverb wants Rastan Warrior Robot.
Oh, I'd love the Rastan Warrior Robot.
I mean, you want to know something? That was something that was done in a cool way in the Five Doctors, and with modern technology and modern and something. You could do something really cool with the Rastan Warrior Robot.
As long as the ball just kept... Sorry. The Rastan Warrior Robot was great, and the attack on the Cybermen was so fantastic.
That was, though, kind of like the start of the end of the Cybermen. Since that sequence, it's the Cybermen have been like the kicking tool. Every time they turn up, even James Corden can beat up a Cyberman. it's like, all Ace needed was a slingshot and a bag of gold, and she was away. And it's like the Cybermen just don't. It'd be interesting. Neil Gaiman, very respected fantasy author.
Can he make them scary again?
And it's supposed to be a scary story. What he's going to do with the Cybermen is going to be interesting.
Have you seen the pictures of the new Cybermen?
I'm glad they've got. That's been annoying. It was in classic Doctor Who. Very few times did the Cybermen return without some form of alteration to them, and yet in New Who, every Cyberman story, it's been the same Cybermen coming back. And it actually got silly in Matt Smith's episode because they were supposed to be Talos Cybermen, but they still look like Cyberus Cybermen. So, the average member of the public is like, "What the hell are you talking about?" But to classic Doctor Who fans, it's a bit.
I'm to be honest, the new design of them. People have talked about how they look good. I'm not so sure. They still look. They look to me
like fetish nightclubbers.
I'm looking to. I'll hold my judgment until they start moving. But I was very surprised they revamped the Daleks a second time, and yet it kept the Cybermen in the same look for so long.
Well, they do look a bit more mobile, these new Cybermen.
Yes.
Yeah. At least they can maybe they can bend a bit.
I'm sure Neil Gaiman knows what he's doing. Somebody has said Epic Gaming Warriors has said Attack of the Cybermen was decent.
It wasn't too bad, but it was still, you had the Five Doctors, and then you had Silver Nemesis, and then you had when they fought the Daleks, it was just literally like the Cybermen were getting beaten up left, right, and centre. And
when I was a young lad, I was more scared of the Cybermen than I was the Daleks. So it's out there.
Well, we won't penalise you for that.
So after this season, do you think they're going to be bringing back any more classic Doctor Who monsters, or have we mined it all now?
Funny you should say that. I did a piece for a website called Den of Geek, popular amongst the internets.
Yep.
I know it well. I did a piece on 10 classic monsters they should bring back. And I've asked you both to read it.
Did this appear the other week?
Yeah, just a few days ago.
I saw that. Didn't you have like the Vervoids as number 1? I was
the Vervoids were number 10.
Oh, number 10. I was
Zygons were number 1.
The Vervoids.
So do you not read when you read an article? You don't read the person's name?
I didn't know, because I was actually looking up on my mobile phone. But I was shocked to see because they were like annoyed me so much. In that there were that between their creation and 2 days later they were able to speak English not only very well but with North English accents.
That was their talent. Yes, they were at number 10. They were great. I think the Zygons are a sure.
Well, the Zygons, a bit like the Ice Warriors, are a monster that I'd say the Ice Warriors, the Zygons and the Draconians and the Ogrons are monsters you could bring back and you don't need to make any change to their look. They actually, what they design then would still hold up now.
Yeah.
And I also think the whole thing of the body print with the Zygons. You could do a very scary something, and it was left open. You know, their homeworld had been destroyed, but their fleet is out there somewhere looking for a new home.
I loved the Zygon spaceship as well. It was good design.
It was. We watched Terror of the Zygons, which comes out on DVD later this year, and it's this story which has some of the best special effects of the year in it. The Zygon spaceship, its destruction is brilliant. I was about to move on to that. It's like, it's so good. And then when the Scarison first appears, it's actually quite good. It's at the end of well, they do a bit of stop motion like they did with the Crinoid, which works quite well.
Yeah.
But then at the end of the episode, the guy like over the tower, it's like that's one of the worst.
On the DVD, there's a deleted scene from
Really?
Terror of the Zygons. Yeah, that they've spliced from various different sources.
Is this the one? Because there was supposed to be a scene of them turning the TARDIS invisible.
Yes,
and it was done very bad. The special effect was apparently so bad they couldn't use it.
It was done badly because they were shooting, and this is what I found out.
Wasn't it the sun went down?
Yeah,
so,
the lighting changed.
Yeah.
You weren't there. Sorry, I was looking to you, but you weren't there. So Series 7 Part 2, the new
8 episodes. Oh my god, 8 episodes!
Aren't we
lucky? Graced with 8 episodes this year. Yeah.
Thank you, Stephen.
Well, did you see in other news? Jenna Louise Coleman was commenting that after these 8 episodes, it's going to be a long time, so we have another series of Doctor.
She used the phrase "long gap." Feel part of the expression.
I'm wondering if the next season, is it season 8 of Doctor Who, will materialise September next year.
September
next year, that's soon.
that's what I'm assuming. At
yes,
the moment.
I think you might be spot on there.
Yeah. I don't think they could leave it any longer, because I'm sure Stephen Moffat might want more time to write, but I'm sure BBC America and a lot of other places which are really...
And the audience.
Yes. Yeah. And you also have the BBC has lost Merlin. They have a new show called Atlantis.
Yeah, they do.
Atlantis may be a hit, it may not, but the whole
thing... It may sink without trace.
Yes, the whole thing of their Saturday night drama is being pinned on a family drama and Strictly Come Dance, you know, this whole... which has really given them back to how it was in the 70s, of a strong, good rating, so they don't really going to want too big a gap on Doctor Who.
But the episode title has been changed. It was going to be The Last Cyberman. Yeah. It's now called Nightmare in Silver. Silver,
yes.
Silver, golden anniversary. I don't know where I'm going.
Did you ever see the documentary for Silver Nemesis, in which the writer goes, well, it is the silver anniversary, so we should bring back the Cybermen? And I thought straight away, why did you hire this guy?
Right, why?
Epic Gaming Warrior says, I think they should bring back the Axons, but they'd mess the design up.
I thought the Axons were a pretty cool design. They're one of those designs which, when you look at it, the design of it, it would work so much better with today's makeup and stuff like that. It works in the Pertwee story. It's a bit offish, but in their true form it looks great, but I'm talking about the golden Axos. It works, but with today's refinements, I think they brought them back in the Doctor Who monthly comic strip recently. It worked.
That's
very
right.
well.
Yeah, they did.
It was a very good story, that, and they've done a few big finishes with them, I think, as well. So I think the Axons would be a good one to bring back.
And 19 Sci-Fi 73 says the Mara were the ones that scared me most.
Yes, well, they were also on my list. Yes,
I always think the Mara. Well, it's kind of like they were the main adversary of Peter Davison. Stephen Moffat Peter Davison was his Doctor. He's somebody who grew up with Peter Davison.
He says, but he's a bit old. He's a bit old.
Well, that's what he says. Yeah. But if you watch the show, he seems to have been more inclined towards bringing back Pertwee, not Troughton villains. But the great thing about the Mara is it's a bit like with the. I mean, to be honest, you could have actually even tweaked the story of the Christmas special and made it Mara, because Mara is very similar to Great Intelligence. It has no corporeal form. It attacks the mind, and so you could do something very interesting.
Kinda is one of my favourite Doctor Who stories.
I think Kinda and Snake Dance. I mean, Kinder's probably the slightly better script, but Snake Dance, you could see they actually spent some money on that episode.
And Martin Clunes.
Yes, but Martin Clunes actually giving a damn good performance. Yet every time he's interviewed on a TV show, they bring out this Doctor Who clip as if he's an idiot. And he must have been, because that actually helped. That was his first. That was his first major acting role, and he wasn't. Apparently, he was doing so well. They beefed his character up, and it was supposed to be the actor who was helping the Doctor was supposed to be more to the fore, and they pulled his character back because the actor wasn't very good. And
You heard it here 20, 30 years after the point.
So, news this week.
Well, there's been... Doctor Who's been in the papers almost every day this week.
Not necessarily good.
Well, there was the Sun reporting Matt Smith is leaving, and the BBC just saying that's not confirmed.
But well, we can't say.
Just his contract runs out in November, and contract negotiations are ongoing.
Yeah, so he's their suggestion is that he's leaving at Christmas this year. Maybe he's leaving at New Year. 2014 on New Year's Day, possibly.
If you were to hear of them doing a New Year's Day special, then you know he's leaving. Whereas if they're just doing a Christmas special, you know he's staying.
Wouldn't expect
but at this point, I don't think Moffat's. I think he's just finished writing the 50th anniversary script, so they haven't. And I'm sure that negotiations are
done.
Very much.
We start filming on Monday.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about for the Christmas
stuff.
Whether Matt stays next year or not, I'm sure that's at the moment still very much being discussed.
I mean, maybe the long gap might be a way to try and keep him, because then he gets to do some other work.
Yeah, well, that works if you actually say to the actor, we want you on these dates, not just keep all year free and turn down other work while we work out whether we've got a script or not.
Yeah, I mean, he's already had the first 3 months of the year off.
Yeah, which he wasn't supposed to.
So he got that directing gig.
Yes.
And now he's doing the anniversary, and then he's away for another 3 months, and he's back in August or September, is the quote, for the Christmas special. Which is quite tight, but it's doable.
Usual, yeah, absolutely.
It's doable.
Absolutely.
So that was people were fairly upset the fact that Matt could be leaving.
One note something I was thinking, say you can be upset, but I was upset when Christopher Eccleston left, when David Tennant
Christopher Eccleston, who's that guy? Don't remember him.
Put your mind back. But I think Matt has so far had a very good run. I think if he stayed, there's more he could do with the character, but you know, I'm just glad there was this rumour he was going to go in the 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
And I thought, what could be worse that you're trying to squeeze in all those other Doctors, an anniversary story, and then a regeneration as well. And I think that it would be nice that when he regenerates, if they do a regeneration that is like what they did for David Tennant and a bit like what they did for Tom Baker and Peter Davison, that's very much a celebration of their tenure as the Doctor. Yeah. What I don't want is a regeneration like Colin Baker till Sylvester McCoy.
2 great Doctors.
One. I liked Sylvester.
Did you? Oh, yes. Right. Speaking of Sylvester, he appeared on the One Show with a guy.
Yes, I saw it.
Colin Baker. Yes. Do you aware of his work?
I saw Sylvester this week on Pointless.
We'll get to that in a second.
I do remember Colin Baker's work in The Jungle.
Yes.
Sterling work.
Colin and Sylvester were talking about the 50th making, and Sylvester made a little joke when he was asked.
Wasn't it something online we haven't been asked or something?
But then, he said we couldn't possibly say, but he was doing a little joke with the microphone as if it was broken. But
it's one of those things you can't ask them, are you involved with the 50th, until the actual announcement.
It's getting slightly tedious because that's people are getting asked, and what happens in the media is if they have signed, then they're not going to say until announcement's made. So every time somebody asks that question, it's a waste.
And if they haven't signed until it's actually announced who the cast is, they're not going to say anything to spoil their chances. I mean, John Barrowman was hinting non-stop, I'll be in the 50th, until this week when he was like, no, I'm not in the 50th.
I'll just stop. That was a reminder that we're doing the show at 8 o'clock. It's kind of funny. So John has confirmed he's not in the anniversary. Poor Captain Jack, it'd have been nice to see him.
But you've got to admit, he's a Russell T Davies character.
Although he was introducing a Stephen Moffat story, but it's a Russell T Davies character. It's still very much a Russell T Davies character. It's a 50th anniversary. There's so much to cover within a 50th anniversary, and I'm sure it will be skewed more towards Stephen Moffat's. I mean, I think we'd more likely see Madame Vastra or River Song pop up than we'd see Captain Jack. Well, speaking of River Song,
she's back.
She's back.
Love Triangle.
Yes, she's in the finale of Series 7. That's not a spoiler. Stephen Moffat has said it was in the Radio Times. Sorry if that's a shock to you, but Stephen Moffat from his gob has said that she's in it, so she may well be in the 50th anniversary. Going back to Colin and Sylv, so I called them Sylv. We're such good buddies.
Buddies.
Sylvester appeared along with Sophie Aldridge in Pointless Celebrities.
Yes. Well, Colin couldn't make it.
Well, he filmed Pointless Celebrities earlier this week, but it was for something else.
Yeah. Well, he was supposed to be in that one with Nicola Bryant. So they got some guy who was in like 2 episodes.
He was in 4 episodes.
4 episodes, right? Yes.
2 stories. Great character. Remember him, Jake?
Just about.
Jake. Remember Jake?
Yeah.
Freedom fighter. Yeah. Jake Simmons.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, good guy. Andrew Hayden Smith, lovely guy. Actually, his knowledge, however,
they were the first lot plumped out.
He lost it for the team, I think.
Yeah. Do you think so? Because he knew that he should we say that? But lovely to see Nicola Bryant.
Looking lovely.
Nicola Bryant actually looks better now than she did on Doctor Who.
Well,
I think.
Well, okay. I mean, she looks great. Let's not get into a conversation about how good women look. Although no, it was great to see all the guys on Pointless Celebrities, though. I really enjoyed it.
But it's nice to see that, you know, Doctor Who now is like when they did a few years back. They did The Weakest Link, Doctor Who. It had to be all new Doctor Who people, and it's now got to a point now with the BBC where they don't now seem to have a differentiation between new Doctor Who and classic Doctor Who.
Because that had quite a nice mix.
Yeah, it's now very much when the BBC do something, whoever they can afford at the time. and it's a bit like we saw on the one show they trotted out Sylvester and Colin, whereas a few years back it would have had to have been somebody from the new show.
Even if it was as minor as what? Yes,
it would have been K9 and Bernard Cribbins, and that would have been a lot.
Lovely Bernard Cribbins, and of course he won.
He won Pointless Celebrities.
Yeah, nice. Great to see him back. I miss Wilf. You know, sad.
And he was somebody who has a connection to Doctor Who from
way back. Doctor Who and the Dalek, Dalek Invasion Earth. Sorry, So we're going to be speaking about Patrick. Is that all the news, Elisar, that we're going to talk about?
Well, I think. What about? I mean,
is that all the news?
Do you want to mention Private Eye?
Should you mention Private Eye? Did you see that? I missed that.
Right.
What did I miss?
Please don't sue us.
I think the last time Doctor Who was in Private Eye was when apparently Andrew Cartmel was doing a left-wing conspiracy to out Margaret Thatcher through his Doctor Who script.
Nice one, Andrew.
Like, what?
I just thought he was making rubbish stories. I'm joking.
I can think of at least 4 that were good.
There are good.
I'm just being funny, you know.
Well,
we all like different things.
Cyberman. He wrote a fantastic Cyberman story in Doctor Who Monthly.
Wow. Well, shut my mouth. And all the Colin Baker fans and Sil fans can attack me.
There are some Colin Baker fans. Tweet. Are you a fan of Colin Baker? Tweet us now.
I'm sure we have lots of Colin Baker fans watching.
Private Eye. I'll inform you what Private Eye said. Now, this is what Private Eye said.
Yes.
That you know that Carol Skinner, the exec producer, left with immediate effect a couple of weeks ago. Did you hear that? Yes. Yeah. This story pertains to this. It's gone very dark in here. Anyway, they reported that Stephen Moffat and Carol had a very public falling out.
Well, that happens when people are working on a show. You have people, when we read John Nathan Turner's biography, there'll be a lot about fallings out.
But it was public, not necessarily even on BBC property. It was actually out and about.
It was at a BBC showcase in Liverpool.
Right.
In fact, it was a BBC Worldwide showcase in Liverpool.
That is very, very public in front of potential
customers
of the show.
And probably famous people. Apparently, it was very public. And this had done the rounds, this story, before Private Eye had released it. Now, apparently, and again, I'm just quoting from Private Eye, Stephen Moffat is quoted as saying to Carol Skinner, "You are erased from Doctor Who." The people have already made T-shirts that are saying...
if you've been a proper fan...
You've
been deleted.
Deleted wasn't his word, was it?
No. So that's why... So I'm not going to say what else this article said, but it made quite an insinuation about the working relationship. And let's just leave it at that for fear of...
Sometimes on TV show, I mean, running conventions and hearing people talking in the green room about stuff, sometimes it can get very fraught.
I heard that K9 had quite the relationship with Chameleon in the 80s.
It may have done. It may have, shocking.
So,
I heard stories of Chameleon doing the rounds at conventions at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Whoa.
Okay, so we've got Jake Midmead, who's standing up as a Colin Baker fan.
Is Jake Jake, do you have any relatives whose name might be
Christopher H?
Colin Bishop says, I'm a fan of both Colin and Syl.
Whoa! He's drunk already and it's only 8 o'clock.
You want to know something? That's the great thing about Doctor Who.
Exactly.
Doctor Who is a show that constantly... every time they get a new producer, a new script writer, a new doctor, it evolves and it changes. And the great thing is that's how Doctor Who's managed to last 50 years, because it's constantly becoming something new. But at the same time, you might have fallen in love with one era and it changed into something else which isn't quite to your taste.
I hear you, brother.
So,
yeah, I have no qualms if people want to like lesser Doctors. It's fine. Joking, because I'm a big Peter Davison fan. But when I was growing up,
you want to know something? I hated Peter Davison.
You see, here we are.
I'm saying
equality.
I could not watch when I was a kid Peter Davison's ones because I was such a Tom Baker fan. And I even hated Tom Baker's last season because of the changes. I didn't like the new music, the new look of the show. And yet when I've come back to those stories on video and then DVD, I found some fantastic, and I really actually now enjoy Peter Davison's performance. It's really great. What I will say though is I always feel Peter Davison's had some of the worst directors on it. Very almost theatrical style. Just point a camera there and have the actors speak to each other, no intercuttings or anything.
I think considering the kind of stories they were doing, he did. But so just to complete the analogy, I was a big Peter Davison fan, still am, my favourite Doctor. But when I was growing up, he wasn't a cool guy to like because of the Baker effect. And he was often looked down on for many, many years, even into the 90s. It wasn't until Peter's stuff started coming out on VHS that he was being re-looked at. People were reassessing the work. And that's when he started, people are going, this is good. And I was like, I was saying this all along that he was great. So I appreciate that you might like a Doctor that other people don't. It's just something that I've always felt as a Doctor Who fan, that people like, they have their Doctors and people don't like others. And that's absolutely fine. And when I mock Colin or Sylvester, I'm not mocking them because they're brilliant men, but just the acting they did, I thought was terrible.
Did you hear Russell T Davis's quote, which is apparently in John Nathan Turner's biography?
No.
That Colin Baker's costume was the worst crime ever in the history of television.
Wow. I mean, shall we?
No.
I mean, Warriors of the Deep was pretty bad.
I do think that unfortunately Colin Baker was one of those who was saddled with a lot of, I think he himself, I don't think there was a problem with him as an actor. I think there were other issues like the costume.
But we'll address those in the Colin Baker show later this year. Today we're going to talk about, is that all the news?
That's all the news.
Stephen Reverb in the chat room says, I'm doing a marathon from Unearthly Child right through to the 50th special.
Wow.
And it's interesting how much stuff from Classic Who is the stuff I used to moan about with the reboot.
He's actually going to have a job watching every episode from the 1st to the 50th. When he gets to Marco Polo, he's kind of screwed.
Have to listen to a few.
Listen to the CDs instead.
Yes. Or you can put yourself through torture and watch a few of these recons.
The specials.
Oh, too soon.
Now, before we also get on to the Troughton, I would like to just say that I generally don't like recons, but I have to say I really, really, really enjoyed Galaxy 4. On DVD.
Yeah, it was great.
If you're going to do a recon, that's the way you do it. And I really felt that worked fantastically.
Well, our good friend Mr. Chris Chapman is currently doing the animated recons of the Ice Warriors at EPS.
That's being animated. That's being properly animated.
Which I'm looking forward to that.
But have you watched Galaxy 4 yet?
I haven't yet. No.
It's actually, you
really
actually feel like you've actually watched all 4 episodes. It works very well.
And before we get to Troughton, I just remembered I interviewed Louise Jameson a couple of weeks ago,
and many others,
along with Dan Starkey and Mr. Simon Fisher.
Well, you have interviewed Dan Starkey before.
Yeah, no, well, we're all buddies, me and Dan, and Mr. Andrew Smith, who wrote Full Circle. But Louise Jameson, lovely lady, we interviewed her because myself and this guy here, Elisar, is it? I can't see the name on the screen. It's not there. We're making a documentary about Doctor Who fans and how they've changed from before 2005 to after 2005. This huge seismic shift.
There was suddenly this seismic shift that women turned up at conventions,
and I was going to say young women, but that sounded a bit creepy. But younger women, and of course you know this because you run conventions.
Well, it was kind of like I was told I ran my first 2 Doctor Who events, and people like Gary Russell and people like that who used to do the old classic ones.
Lovely Gary.
Were like, you've got girls at this event. I was like, it's 80% women
Yeah.
at this event. They were like, you'd be lucky if you saw one girl at an old classic Doctor Who convention.
And now it's fun.
But that's the thing. When I ran my last two, all those girls who turned up, they were all about David Tennant and they were all about Matt Smith. Even Christopher Eccleston was a bit too. You know, if you mention classic Doctor Who to them, you know, it was like, what the hell's is something alien to them?
Christopher who? And you've got a convention. Wow, you've got a convention coming up
in June. Yes,
in June. What's that noise?
Well, we are actually.
It's Stephen Moffat's solicitor to have a chat to us about mentioning
You have been erased from Doctor Who.
You are deleted.
It's quite a sexy noise, isn't it? Yeah. It's like we're in a club.
I was also quite actually surprised. Actually, Galaxy 4. Hearing this reminds me, Galaxy 4. When you were in the what were the blonde girls called? Whatever they were called. Their spaceship. When they were in their spaceship, I heard the Dalek. Dum 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 dum, which were whenever you're in a Dalek ship. It was obviously just a sound that the Radiophonics Workshop pulled at any time for an alien ship in the 60s.
I just realised it's a phone that's ringing.
Yes.
It's a phone that's ringing, yes.
Yeah.
We are actually
as you can see from the lights,
they're all
we are in an office, which is where we're doing.
Did you give her a number?
And, I guess no one has left the voicemail on.
What is the name of the Galaxy 4 women? Somebody tell us, because
the Galaxy 4 alien.
There was the Chumberleys, that was the robots.
T. Drury says, saw the found Galaxy 4 for the first time at a convention in Los Angeles. Plenty of the US fans laughed at it, but I enjoyed it myself.
I think you have really
to watch it.
It's really good.
You have to kind of put your mind in the mind of a 60s show. And you know, if you're going to watch something which was made in the 60s or in the 70s and you go, oh, it hasn't got CGI effect. I mean, it's like, you know, if I watch a film that's made now and has got bad, or TV show that's got bad special effects, I will, but I'm not going to watch an episode of Buster Crabbe's Flash Gordon from the 40s and laugh that there's a sparkler at the end of the spaceship. And I'm not going to laugh at something like The Outer Limits or classic Doctor Who, because you've got to put your mindset of when the show
Absolutely.
was made.
And if you think about, you know, what these episodes now are being made, what people will think of them in 20 or 30 years' time as far as the way things have developed then.
Look at his ridiculous hair.
You know, the CGI nowadays will look really cheap. It's like you watch Star Trek The Next Generation episodes.
Do you?
I think Star Trek The Next Generation has dated worse than a lot of Doctor Who or classic Star Trek
and the reason why is I think you know, when you're doing CGI, that's going to date far quicker than, you know, when you have creatures in suits or whatever.
Yes.
You know,
I actually think there's I think there's something about a man in a suit. Although we might say, oh, it's a guy in a suit.
Why?
Well, you look at the Alien or the Predator or the Dalek. Somebody in a suit, yet it works. When you do a CGI monster, a lot of the times, and they actually there's a term for it, it's called the uncanny valley. There's something in the back of your skull which says to you, that's not real. It's not there. And no matter how good the CGI is, sometimes you have a CGI monster and it just doesn't work.
We had the very same this conversation in our documentary that's coming out with a woman who watched it with a woman and her husband who watched it with their kids, and they made this comment about the CGI. You know, it can be as good as it can be, but there's still something that doesn't have that haptic quality.
I mean, when I think about how good the Daleks are, and you think of the film Alien and the Predator movies, and they're guys in suits, I think a really good thing was the Vought robots. Moving so slowly and emotionless and kind of like, you know, as Leela said, creepy mechanical men, and that worked brilliantly, far better than a lot of CGI stuff, which just, it doesn't kind of look, and it's also the actors' interaction with it. I mean, I felt one of the problems with the Star Wars films was it was all CGI sets. I mean, the last three, it was all CGI sets. So you'd have Samuel L. Jackson walk into a room and he wouldn't put his hand on the windowsill or sit on a chair or something because he was in a green room.
He was too busy getting his lightsaber out and woo! Getting back to the conventions, you've got a convention coming up just
in June.
Yes, in June. Return to the 11th Hour. We've got Aaron Gillan.
Yes. The beautiful, talented and very, very tall lady who plays Amy Pond.
She used to, older readers might remember her from last
older
year.
Viewers here. It's not your blog now.
I know, I do apologise.
We've got David Bradley.
Who's
just in Dinosaurs on a Spaceship and will be playing William Hartnell in the forthcoming special.
It'd be great to see him at a convention.
Yes.
That's a real...
Well, I think he's somebody who's got such a career. When you think Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, he's in
Broadchurch at the moment,
which I've got to say is brilliant. It's one of the best things on TV.
I'm going to have to keep my mouth shut because I've seen a few episodes ahead, so I don't want to say anything because...
But that show is fantastic.
Yeah, brilliant. So he's great. I mean, he's a great actor, and it's good to see somebody like that. And not belittling anyone else at his conventions, but they see an actor.
Well, we've also got Neve McIntosh and Simon Fisher-Becker, who have you've seen them before at conventions. You know, they're people who hang out in the bar, have a laugh, get very involved in the parties.
Neve and Simon are a great pair.
Yeah. They're both a lot of fun, and there'll be more guests to come. Probably have about 10 or 11 guests from the show. And I'm sure a lot of you have been to the last one. We had 1,000 people at, so quite busy. But quite busy, full of people. Yes, mostly girls.
Something
new to Doctor Who events.
I thought you might drop like a new name in, but you don't have. No. Okay, damn.
Sadly not.
No.
you can email the managers and go. Have I got an answer yet?
Curry is asking, has the documentary got a title? Are we announcing a title yet?
Shall we? Do you want to do that?
Is that breaking news, though? It would be breaking news. I might have to get my breaking news.
You can do that. Well, somebody's let us know that it was the Dravens.
Dravens,
that were the female, the rather beautiful ladies in...
And it was actually quite at that point in Doctor Who, that was one of the first stories to really use harder edge science fiction concepts. The Dravens, they were all clones.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of interesting concepts like that in Galaxy. You could actually probably bring back the Dravens quite easy.
Going back to the Vox robots, I kind of always thought it was a shame that just someone didn't put them in a story. They didn't even have to feature it. They could just, if they were the servants of that era, go to that era. Why don't you just have? I
always remember in the Satan Pit. I remember the Ood in that story their function reminded me of the Vok and the Super Vok.
Yeah. Did you know that they were actually meant to be the Slitheen?
You're joking.
No.
That's kind of weird.
If you can picture that. Or was that the Doctor's wife? I can't remember. there was one story with the Slitheen. I'll get back to you on that.
The Slitheen work best within Sarah Jane Adventures. They're kind of like that kind of level. Yeah.
And speaking about on that level, let's go to today's feature. We're talking about Mr. Patrick Troughton.
Yeah,
Patrick Troughton. Indeed.
Or as some people call him, Troughton.
Trumpton. Patrick Trumpton.
I think we might have mentioned this last week. Sorry for pushing my nose there.
That's all right.
My first experience of Patrick the Truffmeister was when the BBC did a short series of Doctor Who stories back.
Five Faces of Doctor Who. I'm surprised they haven't announced they could do something very similar this year.
Well,
but it was a very interesting thing. It was on BBC Two.
Tea time.
It was at
every night.
It was 6 o'clock, 4 nights a week. They did 1 4-part story each week, a different Doctor. So it was 1 week Bill Hartnell, and it was an unearthly child.
Bill Hartnell.
Then the next week it was Patrick Troughton. Unfortunately, the only 4-part story available was the Crotons.
Yeah, I know.
And then
that was my introduction.
And then a week later, it was Carnival of Monsters. No, it was the 3 Doctors.
Yep, and then
Carnival of Monsters. And I was incredibly disappointed that the Tom Baker's representation was Legopolis, which had only just been aired. I was like, I don't want to watch this because this was in the day before DVD or video.
Yep.
I wanted some old, but I apparently it's cheap. The BBC don't have to pay as high a repeat fee as if it's within 2 years. And
Good old BBC.
And plus, they said by airing that episode, they could include Peter Davidson in their umbrella. So
it's kind of amazing to think that the BBC had that every night. Well, 4 nights a week. And yet nowadays the BBC, I mean, we get it on BBC Three. We've just had a repeat season of the 5 episodes.
We're in an era of DVD and video, so a lot of people who 20, 30 years ago were desperate to see this stuff. Now I don't think it's easy to see. If they did an 11 Faces on Doctor Who on television, I wouldn't watch it. I've already got it all.
But you'd have it with Stephen Moffat introducing it.
That might make me.
I stole this idea for one of my episodes.
They did. Do you remember they kind of like tried it again in the 90s, but it didn't kind of work. It didn't work as well because they did a store. It was an episode every week as opposed to every day.
Didn't work.
And when they did Planet of the Daleks though, and they aired it on BBC One, they had a 5-minute documentary at the start of it.
Wow.
And one of them is on there's kind of like a unit video, which is like a recruitment video for
yes.
unit, which is
on the DVD. Yeah.
And certain ones on DVD, but there's one on the missing episodes, which they will never show again because the fans got so upset about it because it takes the mick out the fan, and it keeps on having clips of Ian Levine going, "They destroyed it," like literally in tears. They deliberately pick the worst episode.
Is Ian watching us tonight, do you think?
I don't know.
But Ollie Bishop wants to know, do we have a link for the You Have Been Erased t-shirt?
Oh, it's out
Google.
there.
Did you post it?
I didn't post it. I wouldn't post anything like that against my good old mate Steve-O. Yeah, I wouldn't hurt his feelings. Let's get back to trial. You Have Been Erased t-shirts are out there. I have seen a picture of it. But I mean, that's whether or not he said it, I don't know. But Private Eye wouldn't lie. So that was a great series of episodes that they showed, regardless. Because when you were young,
but when you actually look at it, it was kind of like An Unearthly Child was a great story. I still think the first episode holds up brilliant. It's a brilliant piece of television from the era. Carnival of Monsters, although a very atypical Pertwee story, is a brilliant story.
It was in my top 50.
The Three Doctors is a fantastic romp.
Yeah,
and then you had the Crotons, kind of like in the middle of that.
Well, that was my introduction to the Trout Monster. And I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of Patrick Troughton. And when I say I'm not a huge fan of Patrick Troughton, don't do what all these fans and people do on the internet. Don't take that to mean that I hate him. It's just that I don't think he's brilliant. There is a difference between love and hate. There's there's quite there's not so sure.
I find, again, I find there seems to be this resurgence in popularity of Troughton at the moment. I have a lot of people going, "Oh, Troughton's the best Doctor," and I don't think you can say who's the best Doctor, because I was saying earlier,
I think you can. It's Peter Davison.
Each Doctor brings, each actor brings their own take on it. They have their own production team who have their own take on it, and so
they're still working with the constraints of the producer and the writers and so what they're given.
The problem for me with Troughton's period is so little of it remains. There's only about a third of it available, so it's kind of accepted even before it became apparent that was all available. His third year in the role was the weakest of his tenure, and yet there's only one complete story available from his first 2 years.
And the other thing you have to remember is their production schedule. I mean, they were churning out.
There was something like 44 to 45 episodes. I mean,
44 to 45 episodes a year compared to 8.
Yeah,
compared to 8.
Well, more like 16
6 last year.
But it's when you think about it, though. Also, between season 5 and 6, you had season 5, and then when it went on hiatus for 7 weeks, they showed Evil of the Daleks, and actually had at the end of the Wheel of Space, the last episode of season 5, they had a thing where the Doctor says, "Oh, Zoe, I'm now going to do something with my brain and transmit Evil of the Daleks onto the..." So it kind of like it made it feel as if it went within the continuity. So it was almost like you had 2 years of non-stop Doctor Who on television, and I was told that was why Troughton ended up leaving, because the schedule was punishing.
Well, he wasn't. I mean, he wasn't an old man, but he certainly wasn't a young man.
Yes.
Or he was probably old in the.
Well, there's this whole thing now of apparently Troughton said to Peter Davison, "Just stick in it for 3 years," and now they will say a Doctor should only do 3 years. But the reason Troughton said that was because they were like doing 40 to 50 episodes a year. It was almost like a soap opera.
Even by the time they came around to Peter Davison's, it had been halved. It was only 22 or whatever the hell.
Well, they deliberately halved it when John Pertwee took over, because the schedule had just been, in terms of, it wasn't like producing a sci-fi show, it was like the schedule for a soap opera that was happening for it. And when you consider the special effects and the sets and everything, and once it went to colour, because that's one of the things about the Troughton era, is because it's in black and white, the sets and the monsters and a lot of the effects look a lot better than stuff did in Pertwee's era, because it's in black and white, and it's black and white is very forgiving on a lot of the stuff.
So are you a Troughton fan?
I mean, I've enjoyed the ones that I've seen, but there isn't a lot. That's the thing.
The other thing I do worry a bit I would love that. I'd be so happy if they found some more. But it was like for literally 10 years, you ever picked up, you know, a Doctor Who fanzine or a Doctor Who magazine or read something on the internet, the fans banged on Tomb of the Cybermen was the greatest story ever made. And then they found it. And then all of a sudden it's an okay story. It's not bad.
It's a funny old thing. People absolutely still adore Tomb of the Cybermen, and it's a good story.
But it's still not now. It's not seen now. It used to be every poll, number 1, Tomb of the Cybermen. And as soon as it was discovered, suddenly it fell down to about number 30, and suddenly number 1 on every poll is Evil of the Daleks. And you know, if that's a 7-part, you know, 7 part stories, they can drag a bit in the middle. So,
even 4 parts can drag a bit in the middle.
So if they find Evil of the Daleks, will we suddenly see that one tumbling down on
anyway, speaking of speaking of missing episodes, we do have a contribution from Barry Aldridge as well.
Whoa, the big Bazmeister.
Yes, indeed.
The bar monster.
So he's put together a video.
Has he indeed?
For us.
Not a recon, I hope.
It's top 5 Patrick Troughton stories that he would like to see returned.
Oh.
So should we hand over to Barry?
Over to Barry.
Hey, hello, Talking Who viewers. It's Barry Aldridge here. How's it going though, really? So I'm back though with my own top 5 sort of thing of Talking Who. For people wondering what happened to me last month during the William Hartnell special, let's say I had some personal issues I had to deal with at the time, but they've now been sorted, so I'm now back as ever, and I'm taking part in my top 5 for the Patrick Troughton special. Now, I've actually thought about this, and now with Patrick Troughton, a lot of his stories are sadly missing, There's only a few that have actually survived, and that, you know, quite a few episodes and that, but quite a lot of his episodes are no longer about. So I've decided, though, really, that my top 5, or I'm going to say, the 5 stories that I'd like to see recovered that are either A, completely missing, or B, have 1 or 2 surviving episodes only from that particular story, but I would love to see more of this particular story. So yeah, I'm going to share with you my 5 stories that I'd like to see actually recovered. Now, the first story I'm going to choose here is from his very first season, Patrick Troughton. It's called The Faceless Ones, written by David Ellis and Malcolm Hawke. Basically, people are getting kidnapped in 1966. The Doctors were Jamie, Ben and Polly. Ben and Polly, it's their final story. They leave like within earlier on in the story, so I found out what I've read in that. And people get kidnapped and taken away by some sort of force or whatever. And they come back with no faces whatsoever. And the idea of it as well, you can see it. One of the endings of the cliffhangers in episode 3. This is one of the episodes that have actually survived. You have a guy who's really doing that, and you're wondering what the hell's going on. It's sort of like it sends that chill down your spine. And I wanted to see more about what could it be. Who are these faceless ones and that? They have got some surviving pictures though of the faceless ones, and of the villains and that, and it's kind of intriguing. I found it a very, very intriguing 2 episodes and that. It also has Samantha Collins in there as well, you know, who was actually Queen Victoria though in the later David Tennant Doctor Who's and that. But she said yes, that she preferred working with Patrick Troughton's Doctor. I'd probably say the same thing as well, really. And it was just absolutely weird though to see her really young in this story, and then so many years older though in the David Tennant story, which is weird, you know. But yeah, it intrigued me though. The ideas and the script also was very, very interesting though when I read it online. It was really, really good. So yeah, The Faceless Ones was one of them that I really would have loved to see. The second one would be Fury from the Deep. This was written by Victor Pemberton, who was actually a script editor though for one of the complete stories that have been found, like the Tomb of the Cybermen, and also, yeah, he was an actor though in the Moonbase story earlier on than that. And Fury from the Deep is basically where the Doctor, Jamie and Zoe land though in eastern coast of England, and they go and investigate something that's going on with this gas company and that, and they're producing this foam, but it turns out this foam is pretty dangerous, which leaks into seaweed and that. Now the surviving clips here have, well, sort of like the villains going to the victims, like splurting out some type of gas. That's quite a scary image in that. Sadly though, all of the Fury of the Deep is no longer around, but like I said, there's only a few clips that are still about, and I have read the script online. It does seem very, very intriguing though, this story, and the idea of the really does send a chill, like, yeah, I mean, why do you want to show your teeth off or something like that? That's quite terrifying. And show what's inside your mouth. You never know what's actually inside someone's mouth, though, really. Could be a load of cornflakes or whatever. But yeah, that's another story that I'd love to see recovered, though, really. The next one is, in fact, Power the Daleks. Is, in fact, from Patrick Troughton. Again, you know, his debut story. Now, there's been a few clips that have survived from this one, where you have the sort of like the regeneration sequence with the Ben, Polly, and the Doctor, you know, and not the greatest quality sort of thing. It looks like something taped from a camera pointed at some film reel, which is kind of like a bit interesting. So that's how that bit has survived in that. There's quite a few clips here, the Daleks actually in there as well, which is actually cool. And the mind psychology, because the Daleks are playing some sort of mind psychology, though, with the human colonists on Vulcan in 2020, which is actually 8 years from now. Well, 7 years, I should say, from now. But I like the idea and the psychology, and some of those references were actually used, though, in Victory of the Daleks by Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss, in, like, you know, back then in Power of the Daleks is, I am your servant, I am your servant, and the Doctor's going, no, 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 they're evil, and all that sort of stuff. You know, it leaks in as well into that Matt Smith story, Victory of the Daleks, as well, which is kind of cool. And I've read the script online, and it's a very, very good script by David Whittaker. Also, Dennis Spooner as well. Dennis Spooner also helped out as well. So there's actually 2 writers for that particular story, which was kind of like intriguing and something I really wanted to see, though, really. But I do like that the Daleks are taken to another level in that. So I'd love to see Power of the Daleks recovered. But at the moment, all 6 episodes are missing. The 4th one I'm going to choose is, in fact, The Web of Fear. This is the Yeti's second outing, written by Mervyn Halsman and Henry Lincoln. Now, the Yeti proved to be really successful with The Abominable Snowman, which also only has 1 episode that has actually survived. And The Web of Fear has only had the opening episode survive. But I like the intriguing idea here. It's set in present-day Earth, you know, in like whatever is 1960s or 1970s. And it's basically with the regular army. It's before UNIT were actually created and that, you know. And it has a young Nicholas Courtney in there as well as Colonel Lethbridge Stewart, not Brigadier. We all know him as Brigadier, but he was known as a Colonel, though, in The Web of Fear and that. So it's basically the Doctor, Jamie, and Victoria doing battle with the Yetis in present-day Earth, you know, for that particular story now. And I like the ideas of it. The opening episode was really, really good, very, very suspenseful, bringing it down to earth, yeah, making you want to go out there and go, oh, I'm scared about leaving my house or something like that. You know, that's if you imagine if you were a kid. And I would love to have see this story completed if they actually did. And the ideas behind it was really, really good. So I would have loved if this story was found, but as you know, it may not actually happen. And then the final story, this is actually the one I really want to see the most. It's called Evil of the Daleks by also David Whittaker. Evil of the Daleks has been praised by a lot of fans as a true classic by many, many Doctor Who fans. And the idea is it's basically the Daleks kidnap the TARDIS and kidnap Ed Waterfield's daughter. He's a character that's in there who's known as Victoria. And yet, as you know, Victoria becomes a companion in that. And so Ed Waterfield is forced to do these things, though, for the Daleks and that. And the Doctor has to go along with it, otherwise, yeah, he loses his companion, Jamie. It's basically to come up, though, with the human factor in that. And it's something really interesting. It also brings the debut of the Emperor of the Daleks, which is eventually used, though, in the part and the ways, though, from the 9th Doctor and that. I've actually got the audiobook and I've read the script, and I will say it is a fine script, though, that David Whittaker actually penned together in that, and it was really, really cool. And the Emperor was proved to be quite menacing as well, and the ideas about the Daleks wanting to take over the world was pretty cool. It really made you think, yeah, it was actually a true battle between good and evil. And that was another solidified of why I liked Parton of the Ways, you know, many, many years later. Because Eccleston and Troughton are the only 2 Doctors that I know that can make the Daleks a real threat. A real threat indeed. You know, in terms of their performances and how they actually give in that. And Troughton was on his A game, especially like when he found out who was actually behind it. And he's like, oh my god, and then turns around and goes, right, you know what, I'm going to beat you at this. And then, you know, when they went away and said, oh my god, what the hell am I going to do? And yeah, and getting really upset with Ed Waterfield and Maxwell there as well. So yeah, Evil of the Daleks is the one. There is one episode that survived, which is episode 2. It's a brilliant build-up episode, and it does have that final scenes at the end of episode 7, you know, the model shake-up, and I thought, oh, it's a perfect representation of what the final battle could have been looked like. Oh man, I wish that story was recovered. So yeah, those are the 5 Patrick Troughton stories that are either A, completely missing, or they're missing, or most of them are missing. Most of the episodes are missing. 5 stories. And yeah, and thanks very much though for watching though, guys, and I'm looking forward though to coming back though for the John Pertwee special though, whenever that comes out. Take care though, guys. Peace. Hey, hello, Talking Who viewer.
Thank you so much, Barry. That was lovely.
That was great.
I have to admit, I think he's actually picked the 5 stories, which pretty much
Yes.
within most Doctor Who fans' attitude is those are the ones you'd like to see returned, because with the exception of Fury from the Deep, the other ones you've got an episode or 2 left of them which do give the hint of there's going to be something great in this story. But you know, it could be Tomb of the Cybermen all over again.
But that's the thing, you know, when people find an episode, it's like, well, it's nice, but
well, I have to say, if you asked any Troughton fan what story they would most want returned and what story they least want returned, when they said we found an episode of Underwater Menace, it was kind of like, great, at least that's another episode number off the list. We're down to 104, but couldn't they have found something else instead?
Yeah. So favourite Patrick Troughton moment or story?
I mean,
and feel free at home. Sorry.
Well, I'm
to let us know.
I'm gonna go with the Mind Robber.
Oh, I mean,
yeah. Well,
Mind Robber.
It was the one that was at the NFT screenings, wasn't it?
That was shown at the
early
NFT,
90s.
yes.
Yeah, and so that was my first introduction to Troughton myself, because I didn't collect any of the VHSs until.
You're not really a fan, are you?
Well,
we were watching Troughton back in 1981, man.
Yeah, I couldn't see
Actually,
them. I wasn't able to see them. Unfortunately,
my first introduction to Troughton was actually in about 77 with the Lively Arts documentary, Who's Doctor Who.
Yes, great documentary.
And you know, for me, it was kind of like this person who'd never seen any of the black and white stories, and you were getting these clips from Patrick Troughton and William Hartnell. And I had this book at the time, the Doctor Who Monster Book.
Oh yes,
which was like, you know, the Bible for it was about the only bit of merchandise apart from the Doctor Who action figures. And yeah, the Doctor Who Monster Book, and you'd flick through it and you'd see these pictures of the Zarbi and the Silurians and and the Ice Warriors and these other monsters, and you couldn't see these episodes, and I found it very frustrating. I have to say, if I had to pick out a favourite story, I know I've been going on about it, but I would say the best of what's available is between The Mind Robber and Tomb of the Cybermen. Tomb of the Cybermen is one of those ones, it's an odd one because it's got so much going for it that's good, and it's got so much going for it that's bad. I think it's very well directed, very excellent direction. The set's fantastic.
Yeah,
there's some very good special effects in it and model work, which, as I said, they couldn't have done if it had been in colour. Some of the, like, they do this forced perspective of a spaceship of the first episode, which looks great. If you'd shot it in colour, it would have looked awful.
Yeah.
The Cybermen look fantastic. Their awakening from their tombs is such a really good scene. But there's some instances of the acting and the dialogue which is, there's a guy with an American accent in it which is just dire. The two villains are kind of Looney Tunes kind of villains, but it's almost like with the late when they found Underwater Menace, and what is it Dr. Zarkov or whoever the villain, and he explains he wants to blow up the world because it's every scientist's dream to just blow up the world. I'm like, I don't kind of understand.
It was a different time, the 60s. They always want to blow things up,
and it's kind of like, you know, the group, what they call the group of logicians or whoever, this group who are trying to revive the Cybermen. The whole motivation behind them and everything is just it's not very well thought out. And if you're an 8-year-old kid, it works, but if you're a bit older, they're a bit pantomime. The bad guys.
For me, the performances aren't let it down. But you've got Troughton, who's magnificent.
Who's great in it. I have to say, I found it a bit embarrassing at the start of the story. You've got a girl who's just been plucked from Victorian London, and the next minute she's wearing a miniskirt.
Oh, plucked.
And
yes,
it's a bit kind of, but there's some great, and I have to say it's a really iconic moment. It's almost like something out of a Hammer horror movie when the cyber leader comes out of the tomb and they're all around him, and there's just so many great moments within it. The Mind Robber is just like, it's like nothing else done on Doctor Who. It's an odd one, that one. Such an interest. It could have actually been done in Graham Williams' period, that it's genuinely funny. The comedy in it works. It's clever. There's a lot of interesting stuff. It really works very well. A lot of what survives of Troughton isn't very. The Dominators is very below average. The Crotons is terrible. The War Machines is both good and bad. It would have made War Games. It would have made a great 6-part story at 10 parts.
Well, can I interrupt you? Yeah. Can I interject? Can I? What's the difference between interject and interrupt?
Give me an
interjection. Yeah. The War Games would be my favourite Patrick Troughton, because it's one of the ones that I really enjoy. The whole, I enjoy an epic adventure. Don't we all?
No, I do. And actually, the whole idea, a 10-episode story thing.
Yeah. But you want to know something? For a 10-episode story,
it's fairly strong.
It actually works better than a lot of the. I have to say, Invasion is a story that the fans went on about it. And when I did watch it, I was like, this needed to be a 4-parter. At 8 episodes, it's like, although I will also say, I will always maintain Kevin Stoney, between Invasion and what remains of the Dalek Master Plan, is probably the best villain they've had on the show.
Yeah, I enjoyed the Invasion, but I agree it needed to be cut.
Yeah.
So we got a tweet in. I'm trying an experiment here.
Okay, we've got a tweet. Look at this. Ooh, this
Mr. Stomping Freak says Matt Smith is very much like Patrick Troughton.
People say that. I don't. I mean, personally, I don't get that. I don't see.
I see elements of Troughton. I see elements of Tom Baker. He's very much like Tom Baker, or like Patrick Troughton, on what Sylvester McCoy, when he was at his best, could achieve, where you have a Doctor who comes across as a bit whimsical, a bit silly,
he is very whimsical.
In fact is on top of the situation, but doesn't allow his adversaries to know he's on top of the situation. But I would say there are similarities, but Matt is very much his own Doctor.
I agree. I think he's. You can pick at every Doctor and say they've got elements.
Yes.
Apart from William Hartnell.
There's a set. Well, by the time you get to the second season, William Hartnell. When I was watching Galaxy 4, William Hartnell is very much the template of what the Doctor is. It's only in his first season where kind of like they were finding the grounding, and the Doctor wasn't necessarily a nice guy or necessarily good. And it's interesting watching an unearthly child, where he doesn't want to help the cavemen,
wants to break them over the head.
He doesn't want to help Ian and Barbara. And then you watch the Dalek invasion of Earth, which was made a year later, and he meets a Dalek and he announces, "I will defeat you and throw you off the planet Earth single-handedly."
It'd be really interesting to be able to see those early Patrick Troughton ones, because those are big shoes to fill. I mean, that's obviously one of the hardest things is when you follow a Doctor, but you're following the only Doctor that anyone's ever known.
Well, you've actually really got to give it to Patrick Troughton. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have the show today. I mean, William Hartnell left, and if it hadn't worked with Troughton in there, and it was quite elite what they did, where they say, we're going to have that character, he's going to be played in a completely different way. The essence of what that character is still there, but it's completely different, and it'd be fascinating to watch Power of the Daleks.
Anyone who hadn't watched that story with the regeneration would be Doctor Who, what the hell's going on here?
They're like, what did they do?
I always found it interesting. He wore this kind of like hat in Power of the Daleks, and he only wore it in Power of the Daleks.
But there's loads of pictures of it.
All the publicity stills had him in it, and in the TV 21 comic at the time, where they had a Patrick Troughton comic strip going on, it was some Spanish or Italian artist drawing the comic strip who had never seen an episode of Doctor Who, and the photos they sent him of reference, he had the hat in all of them, they only sent him references of 10th Planet Cybermen. So you've got the second Doctor with that hat fighting 10th Planet Cybermen all the time in the comic strip.
So Patrick Troughton, much loved by lots of people. We think he's all right. I think consensus says we like him.
If you go into Doctor Who fandom of the classic Doctor Who's, you probably have to say, if you went to a Doctor Who convention of classic Doctor Who and said who's your favourite Doctor, it would probably Troughton, Tom Baker and Peter Davidson would be the ones they would probably argue the most.
But I think
over.
also, the Patrick Troughton era, it's not just about him. I mean, the companions, and Jamie.
You had Jamie, the longest serving male, and all this
fantastic
press,
Wendy Padbury,
all this press they have now. I was about to say, all this press they have now going on about Karen Gillan in a miniskirt, and there was Fraser Hines in a short skirt for 3 years, showing off his knobbly knees.
Racist. But yeah, I mean, for me, he's not as good as William.
I have to say, I love Zoe's one of my favourite companions.
I think we've had another tweet.
Yeah,
look at
Ollie
that.
Bishop is saying currently watching The Invasion and loving it.
All right. Well, what is he watching us and Doctor Who at the same time?
Good for him.
So well done, Patrick Troughton.
Sorry. I was going to say there was one of those things that you have to have if you get it, the rapport between the two actors, or the Doctor and the companion. They can write it out, but if you get the rapport between, and there was something magic between Fraser Hines and Patrick Troughton.
They're really good together.
They play off each other fantastically. It's astonishing when you think he was never cast as the companion. It was just as they were filming the story, and they actually filmed two endings to it, and that's kind of interesting. Wendy Padbury is one of my favourite companions.
Is she indeed?
I agree. I completely agree.
Is she indeed?
Yeah.
Because what it works great is she's a scientist. It's almost like long before you got ones like Romana or Sarah Jane. You have this one who's can think, she's intelligent, but she's also hot and sexy.
Whoa!
So I can
sexist
I can be feminist and sexist.
Yeah, that was good. I like that.
At the same time,
she's intelligent, she's talented, and she's all right on the eye.
I didn't. Maybe I haven't seen enough episodes there. I can't say what I've seen of Ben and Polly really excited me. I didn't really see the chemistry. I maybe have to see more episodes, but Victoria got on my nerves because she just seemed to she was worse than Mel at screaming at the slightest thing, whereas I really did like between Jamie McCrimmon and the Doctor and Zoe. Very good chemistry. And I've got to say, I really like the chemistry there. I loved the chemistry between Peter Purvis and who was one who played Vicky. I'm trying to remember her name. Maureen O'Brien and Bill Hartnell. I love the chemistry between Tom Baker and Elizabeth Sladen and Ian Marter, and I like that that's been reintroduced in the new series, the idea of the Doctor travelling with a male and a female companion. I just think when it's just the Doctor and a female, it doesn't give them enough to play off, give them an extra person. I think it's worked very well.
With that, so what we've got now is got a man and a woman.
Back to that, but we've had it for the past 3 years.
Sexual attraction again as well.
I find that really. You want to know something? They played it out with Rose, the Doctor, and Rose, and that was fine. But then they did it again with the Doctor and Martha, and I was bored.
Okay, but
I was
done
bored,
differently.
But so what? And then they brought they brought in Donna, and I was like, thank goodness it's a bit different, a totally different take on the. And then suddenly they started playing. It was like, how many episodes did they did when Rory would overhear Amy talking about this amazing person and get jealous, and you think she's talking about the Doctor, but then at the end of the conversation she's talking about Rory, and you're just like, first time it happened, fine. Second time it happened, I'm getting bored.
But Rory lives in Groundhog Day. That's the thing. He just lives in Groundhog Day. He is.
And speaking of Groundhog Day, how smooth is that?
Bill Murray has just signed.
He's playing the Valeyards in the 50th anniversary special.
That's a character I could really see coming back.
Oh, it'd be great.
Are they going to have the Oxocube mum back?
Oh yeah, what was her name?
I don't know, but she used to do that Isme advert forever.
Yeah. Dame, what's her face? Somebody will let us know. We're going to ask for your thoughts on CD7 Part 2. Let us know what you're looking forward to in CD7 Part 2, what your hopes, your dreams, your aspirations, your dreams and hopes
you might even get your name on screen.
Yeah,
you just did with Ollie Bishop and Mr. Stomping.
So let us know what you're looking for. Any questions, any thees you want to share with the internet. But before that, so get them in. I keep looking over here. That's where our computer is. But I'm going to do a review of the new Doctor Who episode. These guys haven't seen it.
I know.
And it's going to be spoiler free.
Okay,
no spoilers.
Okay.
As I say, I'm going to keep quiet that Paul McGann and the Rani are back. I'm not going to mention that. This is just recording, yeah? No. So Bells
it's just between us. No one can hear.
When are they going to bring back Gareth Jenkins?
Wasn't he in the press? No. Wow. So if you've got any questions about the episode, guys, just feel free, plug them in. Bells of St. John is the new exciting blockbuster movie episode. Show the picture. The picture's great. That's the.
I got to say that picture really gets on my nerves because you've got the Doctor skimming down on a motorbike down the Gherkin
while it's breaking
up. The Shard.
Which is actually
with a great expression on his face, and the look on Jenna Louise Coleman's face, it just doesn't really go with what she's like. Oh, well, we're at the top of a building that's breaking up. Whatever.
There is a motorbike in the episode.
Yes, as we've seen in the trailer.
That's not a spoiler. It's out
there. In the trailer. It's out there. He's on a motorbike.
He has a fez in the episode. Yes, he uses it.
They've released that as a photograph.
He uses it to collect money when the TARDIS lands in the South Bank. It's quite an amusing little scene.
I hope he doesn't pull out money which has a mechanical spider that's that big and say this is currency in some planet.
He does not. I can confirm that's not a spoiler. It's opening episodes can be tough. For seasons, as Warriors of the Deep and Time in the Rani will attest to.
Well, this wasn't supposed to really be a season.
No, it's not. But I'll be honest, it absolutely feels like a new series is starting. So all this part 2.
I think the marketing is completely wrong on this. The part 2 it's ridiculous. If this is the 50th anniversary, it should just be a new series.
Well, take it up with BBC.
Well,
I think the BBC.
I'll write a strong letter. I think
the BBC kind of like can get away more with we're doing a season over 2 years as opposed to we're doing 5 episodes this year and 8 episodes next year. It doesn't feel to the fans like it's a truncated season. It just feels like the season's been broken up over 2 years.
But it's a season opener before we start grumbling about that again.
Series opener in this country, in the UK.
Yes. Did I not say season opener?
No, you said season, series.
There's a good season opener.
Show opener.
It's a
program opener.
It's fun. We get to see Clara again. She's back, Jenna Louise Coleman, and she's very good in the episode, as is Matt. He starts off as a monk in the episode, and there's been a clip of Matt demonking.
He doesn't bump into Tom Baker.
I did wonder if it was a bit of a reference. And they get together again, and it's, of course, she doesn't know who he is, but he knows very quickly who she is. And we find about the threat. There's something in the Wi-Fi, the Doctor finds out. People are being manipulated and controlled.
This is actually something kind of interesting that Russell T Davies first started. They hadn't done in classic Doctor Who, but what Russell T Davies used to do was to pick something of new technology that's come and put something scary to it, which is kind of quite a good way of gripping the audience. Like we had the episodes where the Sontarans were using sat navs, and where the Cybermen were using the mobile phone earpieces, which have already gone now. Bluetooth.
No one uses those anymore.
But it is interesting that it's following on from Russell T Davies of using modern technology against us.
The prologue to this story.
The BBC might call it a prequel.
The prologue to this story. Hugely disappointing, I have to say. The whole idea of reintroducing the whole concept of he's going to meet Clara as she's a little young girl, just so he can meet her again as an adult. It's like, but we just saw this before. Why are they just repeating the whole Amy thing again? I mean,
you could even say it's almost repeating the Madame Pompadour.
Well,
thing.
that's
it's almost like Stephen Moffat's got an idea
stuck in a time loop.
Find.
Guys, don't be so mean about my buddy Steamo.
It's like he once read The Time Traveller's Wife and went, "That's a good idea."
Yeah,
it seems like a pointless prologue, completely pointless.
Yes,
and it's like, why they even bother to release it? I don't know.
Speaking of repetition, it has to be said. This episode does have strong shades of Silence in the Library, the two-parter. Very strong in a kind of visual way with the spoonheads. And
how do the spoonheads work?
I don't want to say because they've not released any images or pictures.
But I mean, are they? What's your own view? I'm just saying, what's your own view of them? Are they silly? Or do they work?
Well, there's the scene when the Doctor uses it to eat his cereal.
He's eating chips and custard.
So it has strong reminiscence of Silence in the Library. A lot of the ideas in Silence in the Library
would you, but I'm not going to say whether you can or not, but as a villain, would you bring the spoonheads back?
The other story that it reminds me of heavily is the Idiot's Lantern as well, at a more superficial level, but there are some strong...
We don't have Spoods going, feed me, do we?
No, you don't. But it's a fun episode. There's stuff that happens in it.
There was, in the Idiot Lantern, there was supposed to be a reference to Logopolis in it. And
Yeah,
that
they
was
cut it out. Yeah, I know.
And I'm just thinking, shows you how the attitude to classic Doctor Who has changed. Now, if there was a reference to Logopolis in it, they would probably leave it in.
Yeah. I don't
the
think
BBC would go, oh, we can sell more DVDs of Logopolis
now available. So it's a fun episode. It's quite fresh, and it's great to see Doctor's got a new outfit.
Yes.
He's on a motorbike.
And purple.
And it's in London, modern day London. Who would have thunk?
And
any questions?
Was there a next time trailer?
Yes, there's a next time trailer.
And does it look good?
God.
Moving on.
There's a trailer for there is a next time trailer for the Rings of Akaten.
That's the one where everyone went, oh look, it's a Draconian. And
I thought it was very interesting. In a very recent interview, Jenna Louise said that actually the intention was that she would be the Victorian Clara through the season, but it was just they ended up dropping that because they didn't think it could go anywhere.
No, that's a shame.
I think that's a real shame.
It's a shame.
Sometimes I think there's something kind of interesting when you have, and I don't think they did it enough with you could have done it with Jamie Roocrimmon, you could have done it for Victoria, and they didn't, but they did it very well to an extent with Leela, and very well throughout with Ace, where you have the Doctor has a companion who's not really au fait with this technology, with what's going on, and the Doctor is teaching them and giving them, like he's picked somebody who has potential. And you have a character like that, you can just do what they did with Victoria and Jamie, and just after the first episode you completely forget that they don't know anything about this technology.
It becomes unnecessary. Well, of course, this whole mystery of who Clara is.
I assume that'll probably play throughout the season to the final episode.
Well, I've seen. Well, so the next time episode. Next time is Rings of Shaka Khan. I mean Akaten.
Shaka Khan.
And it looks not. I have seen the episode, so it's a bit weird. But when I saw the next time trailer the first time, I thought, oh, that looks a bit like The Beast Below. Wow, everybody went quiet.
Not one of my favourite episodes, but anyway.
But I have seen it, and it did actually remind me of The Beast Below when I watched it. But we'll come to a preview of that next week.
That's not the one with
the Space Whale.
No, I'm talking about the actor. I can't even remember the name. The guy was supposed to play Wolverine and didn't.
In the Rings of Akaten.
Which one's that? Is it episode 2, 3, or 4? Which one's got the girl from Here's the Midwife?
Oh, that's 4. Jessica Raine.
Right.
Yeah, Doug Ray Scott.
Yeah,
that's episode 4. Yeah. That looks quite good in comparison.
Ollie Bishop's Hopes and Dreams.
Lots
and
Dreams.
Of TARDIS rooms.
Well, in the Bells of St. John, there is a reference to a room that I don't think's been referenced before, and you think you're going to see it, but the camera stops.
A friend of mine who may have met at my conventions, Jim Swallow,
wrote a
10th Doctor Who novel, Peacemaker.
Yep.
And when he sent it in, of course, as a piece of official merchandise, had to go through the BBC, and they crossed certain things out, saying you're not allowed to reference this, that, or the other. And he starts off the story where, because they're in the Old West, Martha goes into the TARDIS's wardrobe to pick out some clothes. And they said there has been no reference to other rooms in the TARDIS, and crossed that sequence out. And he turned around and said, there has been references. They said, not in New Who. And they crossed that reference. He also wasn't allowed to use the word hardcore.
Wow, I'm glad you stopped.
And he was like, it's not in that capacity. And they went, we're not having 8-year-old kids say to their parents, Mum, what does hardcore mean?
Sorry.
And he wasn't allowed to reference Star Trek either.
Oh, well, I can understand that.
Well, no, it was supposed to be apparently at one point Martha Jones went, I'm a fan of Star Trek, and they went, no, you're not allowed to reference Star Trek.
But they did in the first series.
I'm just telling you that's what he was told.
That's interesting. Hopes and Dreams from.
And Ollie Bishop has Fears. Lots of River Song.
Apparently she's only in one episode.
Yeah, it's just the finale.
The problem they've got now with River Song is Alex Kingston's back in the States, and she's on the show
Arrow.
Along with John Barrowman.
It's sort of like they're collecting Doctor Who.
But that was kind of like, for a lot of Doctor Who fans who aren't called Sean Harry. That was like the dream team up was River Song meets Captain Jack. And
that would be good.
They're exes, aren't they, in this in the Arrow? They're ex-husband and wife. Yes.
Spoilers.
Oh, no, they're not. Sorry, they're not.
But
they're parents of two different characters.
As she's now in the States, they got to fly her over.
Yeah.
And as she's now in the States, and she's got other work in the States, they've got to work around with whatever her schedule is.
Well, she filmed last year. They did it all quite hush-hush.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even if it came around to the next season, they probably wouldn't start filming that until next year anyway. So,
but it's just for this season.
Yeah.
They've got River Song for one episode.
Do you have any other questions?
Well, Mr. Stomping Free is asking, do you think there'll be a release of the full season and the 50th in one DVD?
No.
I don't think so.
It's just Series 7. It'll be
including the Christmas, obviously, because that goes in between.
Yeah, the snowmen. So no more questions about the Bells of St. John? From you guys, I mean.
Well,
I'm going to see it on Saturday.
I'm just going to wait till Saturday.
Yeah. Okay, well.
You know.
I mean,
of course, we'll do a proper review next week.
Will we? And I'll be talking about the Rings of Shaka Khan.
Yeah. Does Shaka Khan turn up in it?
There's a lot of singing in it, I will say. There's a lot of singing.
They're going to bring back, what was his name? Was it John Lee?
That would be good.
Yes.
John Lee spelt with 3 E's.
Yes.
Yeah. The funny thing about Shaka Khan, there is actually a lot of singing in it.
Oh.
And there's a lot of aliens in Shaka.
19 Sci-Fi 73 is pointing out they also reference Back to the Future.
They've done that before.
And what we're talking about?
I don't.
Okay.
I'm sure, but it was talking about references to other things.
All right.
Didn't they reference Back to the Future in Army of Ghosts?
It was Ghostbusters.
Oh, was it Ghostbusters?
Back to the Future was referenced.
I'm sure he referenced Back to the Future. He started using Marty McFly as an example.
Was it the Shakespeare Code?
Right.
He was with Martha. It was the Shakespeare Code. Did I win points for remembering that?
Yes, I think so.
But Russell T Davies won no points with me for referencing Back to the Future that way.
Wow. So that's it. Bells of St. John's on Saturday. Hope you all enjoy it as much as I did.
You're watching this.
Yeah, of course.
On YouTube.
I would be very surprised if anybody's watching this now or on YouTube anytime. They're not going to be watching Bells of St. John.
That would be strange. But there's a few secrets in there. They've still managed to keep quiet.
Okay.
They actually did a fantastic job with Asylum of the Daleks, keeping it quiet. The Jenna Louise Coleman was going to pop up.
I know. It was c'est incroyable.
Yeah.
Huh?
Amazing. Yeah. But I guess she was stuck in one set, so it's not like she's wandering around the street.
1 month later, after that episode, it was 3 weeks later after that episode aired, I was at a German convention. In Bonn for Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, and I saw 3 girls who'd already got their Clara cosplay already up and going.
That's funny because her boyfriend in real life was on Game of Thrones.
I know, but he hasn't done any conventions yet. He apparently wants to be on. He's a huge Doctor Who fan and wants to be on Doctor Who.
Well, she mentioned in an interview she wants to try and get him in
and
an
I'm
episode.
surprised they haven't put, if he's an actor like him wants to be in it, who's on a genre related show which is big in the States as well. I would have thought that would have been a bit of a casting.
And of course there was Peter Jackson reiterating his interest.
But the problem they've got is Peter Jackson has said he will direct an episode of Doctor Who at the regular BBC rate, provided it's filmed in New Zealand. And the BBC's response was, we'd love to do that, but we can't schedule that for at least 2 or 3 years, or something along those lines.
The other problem is he would take one episode and then turn it into 3.
Turn it into a series. and Stephen Moffat's got to write it.
That would be great, because we're only getting 8 in a year anyway. So at least we'd get 11 episodes.
But that's the thing, they would have to film in New Zealand. And, how do you... I mean, they apparently, Russell T Davies said in interviews he wanted to have Britney Spears guest star in an episode.
There was,
and she turned round and said she would love to do it. They approached her, and the response from the management was saying she's completely up for it, but you have to film it in Los Angeles because she doesn't want to fly over for it. And so they dropped that idea.
That's a sad loss. Doctor Who's lost there.
Well, I remember when he was saying that, we said, I want to have Britney Spears in it. I had this idea of them remaking the Robots of Death, but instead of Vok robots, they're all Britney Spears robots. And the Super Vok could be played by Lindsay Lohan, and the Duns could be played by Misha Barton.
That sounds like one of his dreams.
No, it's just I just thought that would be I thought if I pitched that to Russell T Davies, that would go with his camp sensibilities.
The problem is nobody nowadays knows who Britney Spears is. So
no, but this is back like 5 or 6 years ago, and she meant something.
Wow.
Now she just got fired off X Factor USA.
So The Voice?
No, X Factor USA.
X-Factor? Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of USA, if you've been on Amazon.com recently, here it comes. Please.
On Amazon.
There's a new book on Amazon. Wow, look at that.
Your book?
This is my book. It's now on Amazon. It's got a cover. So you can.
Now just got to write what goes inside.
Don't say that. My publisher might be watching. So that's the book. It's on Amazon. It will. My publisher has assured me that it will be available in the UK. It's a US publisher, but they will be releasing it in the UK. But it comes out in November. That's UK, just in case.
Yes, so what you do is you get your advance, and then you wait till October, and then you start going.
Sadly, you have to print it, so I'll be doing that very shortly. But it's nice to get in advance.
I'm sure it is.
So that's my book coming out later this year. Quite exciting to have a book.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And
published author.
I know, it'd be nice.
What's your ranking on Amazon?
I haven't checked actually. It's probably very low. I'm also, and sorry for this shameless plug on your show, on Saturday morning in the US of A, or America as you might call it, I'm on a US TV show called Good Day Sacramento.
Well, one of our viewers watching us live is actually watching from New York. Can they get this program in Sacramento? If it's in Sacramento,
do you know where Sacramento is?
It's
in California,
yeah.
But on the satellite,
it will be streaming live online as well. But if you're
have you seen, talking of the US, that the Doctor Who's getting a second TV Guide cover?
Don't you mean Entertainment Weekly? Or is it TV Guide as well?
TV
okay,
Guide.
Well, because he got an Entertainment Weekly 2 covers last week.
I mean, that is like for Doctor Who, Entertainment Weekly, TV Guide.
Wow. Because BBC Worldwide is quite a small channel in the States.
BBC America.
But it's still, Doctor Who's still getting good.
Number 1 in iTunes when it gets released.
The ratings that Doctor Who is getting on BBC America are respectable, compared to what you'd expect on the Sci-Fi Channel or HBO or something like that. Is very respectable ratings.
Do you think Sci-Fi Channel are kicking themselves for letting it go?
No, because I think the BBC, what happened when they got it back, and with the Matt Smith story, they pumped money into the promotion. And Sci-Fi, when you consider the ratings it got on Sci-Fi Channel, but all Sci-Fi Channel did was just air it. They didn't when I went to the States just before it launched on BBC America, there was billboards all over the States, all over Los Angeles, and there was TV commercials and everything. You didn't get that with the Sci-Fi, and the fact it did it as well as it did on the Sci-Fi Channel, I think was surprising considering how little promotion it got. And they used to cut it as well.
They used to, because they had to shove more adverts in.
So I'll be in American TV, 7:40 a.m. It's streaming worldwide, but Good Day Sacramento. Looking forward to that.
19 Sci-Fi 73 is in the US, so he'll be watching.
Thank you.
Or she, I don't know.
1973, what a great year for people being born. Do we have anything left to wrap up?
Stephen Reverb asks, are there any decent quiet moments in Bells of St. John?
Quiet moments. There are some rather lovely moments. Yes.
And 19 Sci-Fi 73 asks, were there any actual bells and someone named John?
Well, funny you should say that. There are bells. Someone called John. There could have been. There's lots of people in it.
The Doctor calls himself John.
John Smith is what he since the Pertwee days.
I just remembered something that really annoyed me about Bells of St. John actually, because they reference Bebo.
Bebo. What the?
MySpace.
Really?
And Habbo.
What's Habbo?
Well, you see, you don't even know what Habbo is, so it's for kids.
I was actually doing an email shoot out today. To go out to everybody on the email list who subscribes for the Star Fury newsletter, to tell them about digital images being available online from the conventions. And my original email says, and if you get your digital image, it makes it easier for putting it on Facebook or MySpace. And the person who does it said, remove the MySpace comment. I'm like, why some people should have said, just trust me, remove the MySpace comment.
MySpace. So it's a bit, you'll laugh when it's mentioned, because it's like, Habbo is for kids. MySpace, Bebo,
but Bebo even doesn't exist anymore, does it?
I don't know. I thought it died out with the dinosaurs.
I thought it was dead,
It's astonishing how Facebook just kind of like demolished everything else. But
a bit like my first wife. What are we doing next week then, dear?
Well, we will actually have a proper review of Bells of St. John's, where we can actually discuss
when does the JNT book come out? Are we going to do a review of that?
Well, I asked for a review copy, but they said they weren't sending many out.
Well, SFX got a review copy.
Yeah, well, I'm not SFX, thankfully. Yeah, we can get that together at some point.
Gallifrey Times has just joined.
Hello,
Gallifrey. Show.
Probably thought we were on at 8 o'clock tonight.
Yeah.
Gallifrey Times, by the way, is running a competition on their website, so go to the gallifreytimes.com and you could win one of the Babelsphere CDs, the Tom Baker story.
I'm going to stop you. It's pronounced Babelsphere.
Oh, okay, see, that's the Douglas Adams fan.
Now, what's Babelsphere? What is it?
It's the new Destiny of the Doctors.
All right.
It's quite interesting.
It's a new audio series of
I listened to it just the other day. Actually.
Audiobooks, Doctor Who audiobooks.
So this is nothing to do with Big Finish?
They are producing them.
All right.
Yes.
But it's
on a different label.
So one a month. So
it's kind of interesting. All of a sudden, last year, Tom Baker suddenly getting involved with Big Finish and stuff like that.
Jim Swallow's written one, hasn't he?
Yeah, Jim Swallow's done the one for Seventh Doctor.
But is this, a lead into something else with Tom Baker? Oh, and did you actually hear the comment on the Jonathan Ross show? That Matt Smith was on the Jonathan Ross show the other week with. No, it was a great geek moment. You had half the cast of Game of Thrones. More like a tenth of the cast of Game of Thrones with the amount of people they have. And he had Gandalf himself trying it on publicly with Matt Smith.
I know, I saw it.
And Matt commented when he was asked about the 50th anniversary, he said paintings.
Yes.
And I had this idea of maybe the 11th Doctor walks into a room in the TARDIS with paintings of his previous self that he can maybe communicate.
And maybe it's like the picture of Dorian Gray, the pictures of
Harry Potter portraits.
So something like, because I'm just thinking, how could they bring in the Doctors for a cameo that so they're there in it, but they don't have to go into something.
Well,
which
Morbius could come back and he could have another brain fight,
and try and explain how come the Doctors actually had about 20 past lives.
So next week, what did you say? Well, yes, we're properly reviewing, and I will preview the Rings of Shaka Khan.
Indeed.
Shaka Khan. And are we looking at anything else?
Yeah, we'll pick a DVD to review as well.
No, crike.
So,
good.
Yes.
It's actually quite a while to the next DVD release.
And the ones that have been coming out are ones that
there's 2 in May.
Have been released already. So
it's kind of like funny. There's 2 in May and 2 in June. But
so maybe we need to pick. Like
maybe we should.
Well, as it's 50th anniversary,
when we're talking about Pertwee.
Good question. We'll discuss this in the privacy of our own homes. So we'll be back next week. Are we doing it at 7 o'clock?
Gallifrey Times has just said it's gallifreytimes.co.uk for the competition, not
gallifreytimes.co.uk.
And Robert Thomas in Twitter says, as someone who works in Amazon, Cameron's book had better not be heavy.
It will be heavy with facts. It won't be heavy with facts. It will be heavy with love. No, that sounds wrong.
Heavy with fun.
It's a paperback. It's $20, I think.
Will it be available on iTunes? iBooks?
I better call my publisher and find out. I hope so.
Because that's nothing for him to pack.
Yeah. Pack this electronically. So we'll be discussing and get your opinions on the Bells of St. John to his 4 next week, please. We'd love to hear.
A final question from Ollie Bishop. Do you guys know what the Regenerations box set is?
I do. Because I saw that on, I think it was on Sainsbury's they had it listed. It's about 40 quid. And I immediately emailed the BBC to ask them about it.
And are you allowed to tell us what?
No.
Well, you will, but once we've turned that off.
Yes, once we've turned it off. But it's probably what you think it is.
Another excuse for us to rebuy what we already own 3 or 4 times, but in different packaging.
I wouldn't like to see.
Yeah.
So it's goodbye from me, Cameron K. McEwan.
It's goodbye from Elisar Cabrera.
And it's goodbye from Sean Harry.
Wow. We'll see you next week, 7 o'clock.
Take care.
7 o'clock.
Bye-bye, Internet.
Bye-bye.